Birdwatcher Christian Cooper, he penned a new comic book partly inspired by incidents of racial bias, including one involving him.
Sir, I'm asking you to stop recording me.
Please don't come close to me.
Please take your phone off.
Please don't come close to me.
I'm taking pictures and calling the cops.
Please call the cops. Please call the cops.
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Please tell them whatever you like.
Still gives me chills looking at it. This is from Memorial Day when Christian Cooper recorded his widely shared confrontation with a woman. Her name is Amy Cooper in New York Central Park. Now, no relations. He says he asked her to follow the rules and put her dog on a leash, and she did not, as you see, want to do that. Since then, she has apologized. On the same day in Minneapolis, George Floyd died after a police officer put his knee on Floyd's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Christian Cooper's new comic book is called It's a Bird. It follows a black teen bird watcher named Jules, who was given binoculars, and they've got special powers. For this story, Cooper says he was influenced by many black Americans' experiences with racial bias and injustice. And he's here this morning for an interview that you'll see only on CBS This Morning. Christian Cooper, it's very good to see you. I want to know a bit of the backstory. DC Comics reached out to you, and you have some training in comic books, we should say, so it wasn't out of the blue. They reached out to you. What was their pitch to you, and did you like it right away?
Well, they asked me if I wanted to share some of my experiences, and I thought, well, gosh, in the context of superhero comics, I'm not sure how you do that. And they had one thing, which was the title, It's a Bird, and it took me a second. I had to think about it. I'm like, oh, yeah, of course, Superman. It's look up in the sky. It's a plane. It's a bird. It's a plane. So once I heard that, the story just kind of poured out of me. It just kind of fell into place in my head.
So what flowed out of you? Because number one, we should say the illustrations in this comic book, we've all read it, are spectacular.
Yes.
They're really, they just conjure up such emotion. So when Jules looks in the binoculars, what does he see? What was your conceit here?
Well, the conceit is that he gets a pair of binoculars inherited from his grandfather, who was a civil rights activist and Korean War vet, and he thinks they're crappy old pair of binoculars and doesn't want to deal with it. But when he starts looking through them, he sees not only the birds, but he starts seeing these African Americans who have been unjustly killed at the hands of police, and he doesn't understand what he's seeing at first. And it's in the course of the story how he goes from being this flippant teenager to a very sober young man who starts to appreciate what's been going on. And so that's the conceit of the story. But the idea is to weave together all these different experiences, experiences I've had, experiences that others have had, the experiences we've all seen over the summer and before of African Americans who have lost their lives, and by transcending the specifics of any of those individual moments, getting to the heart of the matter, what's going on here, which is the systemic bias that pervades all these incidents.
Christian, there's a quote that I read of yours, which I find very powerful, which is that people have to stop othering each other. What do you mean?
Well, we have to recognize when we're looking at somebody else that we're looking at somebody's brother, somebody's sister, somebody's father, somebody's mother, somebody's uncle, cousin, whatever. That we're not looking at a thug. We're not, we shouldn't presume that someone is a criminal, and I think that's very important. I think that's what has the potential to save us as a society at this moment when we're so divided.
Yeah. Christian, Tony Nicopol here. You don't have to convince me about the power of a comic book and why it's a great vehicle for a story like this, but for people who might be surprised that it's in comic book form, I'd love to hear you talk about why a comic book works. Oh, we lost him for a moment. I think
he dropped his IFB.
Yeah.
So he has to put it back in his ear.
The earpiece just dropped.
Okay.
All right, we saw.
Yeah, you can hear us now, Christian. Okay, here we go.
So I was asking about the power of a comic book in particular, that form to tell a story like this. Could you talk about why you like it as a genre?
Sure. The power of comics, and Mark Morales, the inker on this story, and I want to give a shout out to Aletha Martinez, who's the penciler who did those beautiful illustrations.
Yes.
But Mark Morales said it best. He said, comic books combine both the pictures, the images, and words, so you get the power of both in one place. And I think that visual storytelling and sequential storytelling with words and pictures just has a power that no other medium really has.
Yeah, in it, Jules has an encounter with a woman named Beth Cooper in Central Park with her dog, and Jules
Her
asks
name's
her to
not Beth Cooper. Her name's not Beth
okay,
Cooper.
okay, you're right. Sorry, Chris, sorry. He has an encounter with a woman named Beth, and you want to be very clear that it's not Amy Cooper, but who does she represent?
Exactly.
I know, my bad. Who does she represent?
Well, I mean, obviously it's inspired by, that experience, but also other experiences. She doesn't represent any one person or any one thing. That's a pastiche of a lot of encounters I've had and encounters that other people have had. So I don't know that she represents she doesn't represent a particular person, but she represents sort of someone who's mired in that bias and doesn't recognize it.
Have you and Amy Cooper spoken since that day? Spoken or talked?
No.
No?
No.
Any desire to do so?
I don't see the point. I'm not looking for a Jerry Springer moment where, or a hair pulling fight or, a feel good hug it out moment, which has no, substance or meaning behind it. So, what I'm really about is sort of moving the conversation forward.
Yeah.
And if there was a way that the two of us getting together would do that, sure. I'd be all for that. But you'd have a hard time convincing me that it wouldn't turn into, a sideshow, a spectacle just for, people to pat themselves on the back. That doesn't serve anybody.
I think it's
I'm really
interesting.
focused on.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say what I'm really focused on is, let's not get distracted. There are a lot of people who have a vested interest right now in distracting us from tackling this systemic bias. Whether it's a couple of wild individuals who want to throw bricks through windows, or a couple of right-wing individuals who want to dress up like left-wing individuals and throw bricks through windows to stir up trouble that they can then use their guns to shoot at, or whether it's some charlatan in a high place who wants to distract us from his many, many failures. A lot of people have a vested interest in distracting us right now.
One thing.
And the point is, don't be distracted. Focus on this issue, just as Jules does when he turns away from that person who's trying to make it all about her, and he focuses on those people. And that's the point. Focus on those we have lost and how we keep from losing any more.
It's so well said. But the thing that struck me about the comic book, Chris, is that Jules wears glasses. Why was that important to you? And do your demonstration what you said about glasses. I never thought of it until you pointed it out one day.
Yeah, you mentioned this before, and it's true. I mean, there's a reason why I wear little round glasses, besides the fact that I need them to see, but I've never gone to contact lenses because people react very differently to a black man wearing these and a black man like this. And that's one of the sad comments on our society. And, how do we start to fix that? That's what we need to get at.
Well, we all thoroughly enjoyed It's a Bird. On a scale of 1 to 10, we give it a 10 plus.
Terrific.
Thank you, Chris Cooper. Really good to see you. Job well done. It's a Bird is available for free on readdc.com and other digital platforms.